Hello and welcome. Today we're working on beginner mistakes that people might make in Excel. I've seen a lot of spreadsheets and I've taught a lot of students how to do things in Excel, and these are consistent errors that people make when they're beginners. So let's get started. Hello, my name's Jeff from Finally Learn, where I help you finally learn financial literacy. So here's our list. We'll go through it. You can pause this if you want to look at it and make a list here, but I'm going to show you an example all the way through. So one error is not showing inputs or assumptions. So here is the problem. How do we get these numbers? Are these just test numbers? Is this the real numbers? Is this a budget? So not showing inputs or assumptions, not using formulas, and we've actually hard-coded the numbers in. We should use formulas. Some things are subtractions, some things are numbers, and so we want to format with units and decimals and lines and borders, and then not using an absolute cell address in your formulas. So let me do it. Next tab over, and we'll start solving these. So for example, let's say we have inputs. We have 5,000 units, and so we want to make this would be an amount that is in units. So we're going to put comma here. The sales price, we're going to use US dollars, but you could use British pounds or whatever. And our cost of sales would be a percentage. So now a lot of times we're going to talk about this on formatting units. So we want to probably use more than one decimal, more than 0 decimal places. So a lot of times 2 decimals, maybe up to 4 decimals might be helpful. And we know the expenses here are in dollars, and we don't need the pennies here. And the income tax rate is 30%, just a plain 30%. We might want to use it because it's not 30 point something or whatever. So this might be our assumptions or inputs. And so I think it's a best practice to have inputs so you can see, okay, where do we get the numbers from? Now, I just copied these over, and these are, if you look in the cell, one of the things that people don't know when they're first looking at Excel, they're only looking at what they can see, and they don't realize what is, kind of behind the scenes. So I've got sales, and I've got cost of sales here. And so one thing we want to do, we want to format these probably for dollars. We'll do that here in just a minute. But we don't have to type in the 100,000. So they might see 100,000, but this actually would be a 5,000 units times $20 selling price. So that gives us the 100,000. So what you see is 100,000, and we format this for dollars. But what's actually in the formula, what's actually in the cell is the formula, C2 times C3, which is the sales in units and the sales in price. So our first error that we solved is not showing assumptions or inputs, because we can say, well, what if we sold 6,000? Well, you see now our sales gets updated. Now everything else is wrong because we've hard-coded the numbers, so that's another error, hard-coding the numbers. And you can hard-code numbers in a formula, so you could say, let me go back and I'm going to undo. And so 5,000 times 20, so you could say equals 5,000 times 20. The problem is, if you do that, you've hard-coded the numbers in the formula. You don't want to do that, because if you change this to 4,500, well, you have to say, well, how come the formula didn't change, or how come my sales did not change? Well, I've hard-coded the numbers in the formula. So number 1 error, not using inputs. Number 2 error is not using formulas. Number 3 is hard-coding the numbers in, typing the numbers in instead of pointing to the numbers and doing it that way. So let me continue. Let me show you all of this, and we'll come to some other errors then, like formatting units, decimals, things like that. So we're going to have, we need to do the 4,500 times the 20. Okay, we got 90,000. If we go back and change that first input to 5,000 units, we're back to our 100,000. And we're going to say cost of sales is going to be 100,000 times cost of sales is 45%. Well, we had 45,000 as our gross profit, so that needed to be 55%. So we made an error maybe in our cost of sales number. So we can type 55%. Now we see it updated. And so it already formatted for dollars, and in pennies, we may not want that. So you want to manage that. So sometimes the formatting things happen at the very end, and that's an error if you don't kind of deal with it. Our gross profit is going to be 100 minus the 55,000, so that's 45,000. Our general and administrative expenses, G&A expenses, I'm just going to point to that 30,000. And so I've got 45 minus the 30 here, and I've got 15,000. And instead of typing in what we think the tax number might be, let's use a rate of 30%. So we'll take the income tax number, the 15,000, which is the earnings before tax, times that 30%, and that's 4,500, and then we'll just simply subtract 15,000 minus the income tax, and we have everything now with formulas. So now we have inputs or assumptions. We're using formulas. We haven't hard-coded any numbers. Now we need to get to format units and decimals and things like that. So I'm going to highlight all these, and I'm going to put them all dollar and all 0 decimal places. So you want to manage this. So this is one way of doing it. And let's go down to number 6. We're not formatting for lines and borders. This is hard to read. So in financial statements, we say we're going to put a underline wherever we have a subtraction. So 100 minus 55 is 45,000, or it could be an addition that we have a number. And so 45 minus 30, we have another underline we need. So that's 15. And then down here we have 15 minus 4,500, and our final answer is our net income or net profit. So we're going to do a top border and a double bottom. So you can see this is much, much easier to read because we have a little income statement format, and so we have numbers and things like that. So all these are dollars. We can do different currencies or whatever. So you want to make sure you format and do the correct decimals. Now let me do something else. Let me format the decimals and lines. We've done the lines, but let's do another thing. Let's add percentages. Everything is percent of sales. So I'm going to take 100 divided by the 100. Okay, that's going to be 1 or 100%. Okay, now if I just copy this down, then it's not going to be very helpful. I want to take the 55 divided by the 100,000, 45 divided by 100,000. So the problem is I want my C9, the first C9, to be relative, and I want the next one to be absolute. So one of the challenges is understanding the absolute address. So let me go back and show this first one. I want to show this as a formula here. So I'm going to do 100,000 divided by 100,000, and I'll make it absolute. And the way we make it absolute is using the F4 or the function F4. So I'm going to use function F4. So it anchors that C9, the second one where I divide, and I'm going to just pull it all the way down, copy it. And so you can see 55,000 divided by 100,000 is 55%. 45,000 divided by the 100, 45%. So we can easily look and say, hey, our gross profit is 45%. Or our net income is 11%. Or is it? Well, we want to format this to 2 decimal places. So we see it's 10.5%, not really 11. So we want to format the decimals the way we want to. One of the errors that people make at the very beginning is they might not have it formatted for percentages. So you just have this. So it's 1 and 0.55. You say, is that a percent? What is that number? And so you need to format it for percentages. But then sometimes they'll just have it formatted with 0 decimal places. So you think, oh, this is 11%, when in fact, it's really 10.5%. And the first one, 4.5, is not 5%, it's 4.5%. So you want to format the units in dollars or percent. You want to format decimals. So 2 decimal places, maybe you need more to show. The other thing sometimes people do is they do, let's say they do 2 divided by 3, and they get this number. And then they say, okay, that's the number. And so the general format just shows lots of decimals. You want to manage that in a way that makes sense. Don't just leave that number as a raw number. It looks like you don't know what that number is. Does it need to be a percentage? maybe with a couple of decimal places? Does it need to be a dollar amount? Does it need to be just a decimal with maybe 4 decimal places, things like that? So that's how we want to manage our formatting with units and decimals. You want to make sure you have formatting lines. You can use borders around to make it easy, so this is easy to see in assumptions or input section. And then we're going to make it easy for people to read and make this double underline and then have a single line here and a single line here. And somebody is, when it's you pull this spreadsheet up 6 months later, you understand what that is. Somebody else can see that and they understand what's happening on this because it's easy to read. So this is the first 7 errors. A lot of people have issues like this, just simple little things that you want to solve when you get started with Excel. Now I've grouped the next 2 is kind of called saving errors. And so the saving errors, if you're on Mac, it's Command S or Shift Command S. And so you want to save or save as. Windows would be Control S or F12, or probably you have to hit the function key to access the F12. So a couple of things, it could be a saving error, you don't save enough or you don't know where it's saved. So I've got some tips for you, or you're saving the wrong file type. Now, so a couple of tips, save a copy maybe rather than working with the original data set. If you have an assignment for school, then download your data set and then save it as a file that maybe has your name on it, where it's a working copy, so you don't have to always go back and you're losing your original data. Number 2 is know where the file is saved. You need to kind of manage that. Is it saved on the desktop, in a folder? Is it in your documents? Where's the folder? What's the folder name? Is it online? And you want to make backup copies. So number 3 is make more than one copy. Number 4, name the file with a name you'll remember and understand. And then also number 5 there, consider adding a date or version number. Now, some people get so, kind of paranoid, they make it really long. And so this one is financial statements 2022 final updated version 2.34C. That's probably too much, but some people they assume that there never will be a file lost, and that's not very good either. The more you work with computers, the more that something will happen where you don't have a file or there's some kind of error and you didn't save it. So make sure you save early and save often. The other error that you might have is sometimes you get data from a website or from a government source as a CSV file. And so save that as an XLSX file. That's the standard format. Or save the old version of Excel is XLS. Save that as an XLSX file. Let me remind you a couple of things. If you go to the File menu, you can't see the File menu, we can see it drop down. I'm on a Mac, so this says, hey, do you want to save? Command S. Just use Command S. You don't have to come up to the File, to the menu and do that, and the Save As. And if you did Save As, then it pulls up, you can save this as what? And so you can figure out where you want to save it, what's the name, the version number, all that. And so Save As is very helpful. And it kind of helps you. I've saved it in my Excel folder here. So the other thing is, let's do Save As. I didn't show you this part. On the Save As, it can save in a bunch of different ways. So you might get it. You can save a PDF. Now, if you want to share it with somebody that's maybe a client or somebody just wants to see the data, then PDF. But otherwise, you want to save this CSV file or the old version of Excel. You want to save it in the modern version of XLSX. Okay, a couple more errors here. We got 3 more errors. Number 10 is we enter the data left to right. Okay, that's an error. So let's say I'm going to make up some numbers real quick. 1, 2, 3, and then you have to tab over, and then 1, 4, 5, and you tab over 1, 8, 9. Okay, so that's a slow way of doing it. Now, the default format when you hit enter on Excel is if you do 1, 2, 3, whoops, I'm going to do it right here, 1, 2, 3, and hit enter, do you see that it goes down? So you can, without stopping, you can enter all the information down. So this is 222, this is 214, and this is 289. Okay, so you can enter it down. It's a little bit faster. Now, if you give somebody your data set, certainly you don't have to copy that over again, but if you're going to enter the data, enter it down, that's faster. So let me do this quickly here. And then the last column. And so it's faster if you enter it in columns. So don't enter across because you have to hit tab, and that default format is not as easy. Now, I've seen this sometimes, and so I think part of this is a error that people have. They put too much data in a cell, or they don't understand what Excel kind of is. They just think, well, it's kind of organized Word. Well, Excel is your best calculator. So way over here, we solved an error, and we had numbers here, and I had sales, and they had 100,000. But I've seen people do this, and this is a common mistake at the first. You just want to kind of make sure you understand. This helps you understand what's going on. If I look at this 50,000, 35, and 15, I say, well, what if this is 60,000? And I'm going to run the math. I'm going to take 60 minus that. I got 60,000. That's clearly not right. So what's happened is they typed in sales and a bunch of spaces and a dollar symbol and a comma. And you think, oh, they don't understand what Excel can do, right? They think Excel is just kind of organized squares where you're typing numbers in. This Excel is not a number holder. It's not just where you kind of organize things. It can actually calculate this. So what we need to do to fix this, let me do undo here. It all looks good, but what they've typed in is sales, a bunch of spaces, and 50,000. Cost of sales, a bunch of spaces, and then $ 35, comma, gross profit. So what we have, we just need to enter this correct way. Sales, cost of sales, and then gross profit. Now, I don't know what numbers we had. Now it doesn't really matter. 50,000 and then 30,000. And then we're going to run the math. 50 minus the 20. 30 is 20, right? And so we can show this as a dollar amount. Or certainly we could show this as British pounds. Right? So it's British pounds. And we say, well, what if we had 67,000 and our cost of sales were 33,000? Well, there's our gross profit. So put one data item in one column. So one item, one cell, and then you'll be much better because then you can run math on it. It's not just a way of organizing information. And so somebody might see this and say, oh, I just need to type this in like this. And as long as it shows this, this is fine. Because remember, what's hidden in this cell is 67,000 and without any formatting. And so what's hidden in the 34,000 is a formula. So it's what you can see versus what you can't see. Now the last one, merge and center cells. So let's say we have this information. Let me get rid of this. We have some units and some dollar prices or whatever, and we want to multiply it all. So sometimes people think, well, hey, I want to make this really attractive, and I'm going to use this merge and center and highlight all this and merge and center. And then I can just say, well, it looks good. We understand this looks good. And we could highlight all this if we wanted to and make it borders. So this looks great, right? And so we have 100 times 15, okay? And then we'll copy it all the way down. We copy it all the way down, and we have a problem. It says merge cells need to be the same size. Okay, so why can't we copy it down? It's because of this format right here. If I want to highlight this column and say, well, I have a total of 575, but let's keep going. Then once it hits the merged and center, I can't select one column. I have to select all 4 columns. And I can't do anything with this. This is, it covers G8, H8, I8, and J8. It covers all those, so this is a real problem. If you give somebody, if you work with a spreadsheet and you do merge and center, it's going to be a real problem. You can no longer just highlight one column. It selects everything. All right, so let me show you a way we can solve this. Let me undo the merge and center, undo the merge and center. Okay, so now the 1500, we can do this all the way down. We'll delete that. And so we're going to use a function called center across selection. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. You can, if you do Command and 1, it pulls up the Format Cells dialog, which I think is quicker. But you can always access it by here, going to More Number Formats, and go to the alignment and the general alignment. Horizontal alignment is center across selection. Hit OK. Now we can do that again, or we could say there is a F4 which repeats. So if I highlight this, I'm going to hit Function F4 and it'll repeat the last formatting action. And so therefore we have it where I can still highlight just that first column, just that second column, just that third column of numbers. And I know this is the first column with labels, so it doesn't mess us up. Now, one thing that happens is East, even though it's shown over here in the middle, East is actually in G8. So we can reference it with formulas and everything. Even though it's shown over here, there's nothing in H8. It's only in G8. So one of the errors is merge and center cells. You ought to use center across selection. Much better format to use. I hope this is helpful. I've got lots of videos on Excel and financial literacy items, accounting, finance things. So I hope we see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.